Hello everyone, watch this review here with a look at the Ultra-Poseable Spider-Man from the, Amazing Spider-Man 3 3/4 inch line, the movie series version at any rate. Now you've probably seen a whole bunch of Ultra-Poseable Spider-Man reviews by this point. I know personally I've seen at least 5 to 10. So tell you what, this one will be different. And why will it be different? Because I'll be reviewing it. Yeah, I know every review is going to be different because different people review it, but still. I'm going to try to bring in the previously released Superposable Spider-Man from the 3 3/4 inch Fierce Foes / Spider-Man Classics line, whatever you choose to call it, as well as the Marvel Universe, Doctor Strange. But before that, I just want to mention that Hasbro really hit it out of the park here with the packaging. It looks pretty decent. First off, you have the Spider-Man figure in a variety of poses, showing his ultra-posableness or superposability. It's kind of weird where they use the two different adjectives, but hey, whatever. It looks really neat. Then bottom, I guess, kind of blends, although, the other figures in line doesn't look like it's that cool of a box. Also really like the photo quality image on the card there of the Amazing Spider-Man. Then you have the sort of usual character burst in the front with the thing that wraps around to the side, so it's nice all around. Ultra-Poseable Spider-Man, or Ultra Spidey as I may call him for most of the review, doesn't come with any accessories. It's kind of the rarity for this line, given that every other figure in it seems to have some sort of like a gimmick launcher, some crap. Now, just like his predecessor, Superposable Spider-Man, or Super Spidey, he's really only ultra articulate in regards to the other stuff in his line, which actually has less articulation for the most part than the previous Spider-Man Classics / Fiercest Foes, or whatever you want to call the 3 3/4 inch line. Because things like ankle rockers and stuff have sort of found their way onto the Marvel Universe line, and a lot of the articulation we do kind of see with some of the more recent Marvel Universe figures, and they even have some points that he doesn't, like calf pivot, which he could kind of use. But beyond that, he's actually a pretty decent looking figure. There's a heavy amount of sculpting here. You'll notice that he's got a matted finish for the whole costume. Paint-wise, you get this really nice bright blue. I don't like the red as much. It gets really dark in places. They add some shadowing, especially here. I guess sort of on the lower torso. It just, I don't know, it makes the costume look less visually appealing. Also, most of the costume is kind of shiny, except for the forearms here where they sort of glob the paint on. It looks like it's a slightly different color. It's also kind of weird where you have all these sculpted lines for the webbing and stuff, but no paint in there. Can't recall what it's like in the film. Now, for the, I guess, sort of promotional materials I have seen for the film, the eyes in it are kind of gold. These are actually just white, although they're sort of purplish, depending on the lighting. Not sure what's up with that. Ultra Spidey has open hands. Kind of not sure why they went this route. Usually they'll give either a double web spinner, a web spinner and a closed fist, or rarely double closed fists. Well, sometimes also a closed fist and one open hand, but yeah, I'm kind of getting off tangent. I mean, there's really not a ton you can do with this. I mean, you can't pose him punching another character. Can't really pose him web spinning, although I guess if you use the ball socket and just turn it down a bit, it kind of looks like he's shooting a web. It is good for sort of holding like wires. I'll just pull those out. Something like this, and then he's sort of web swinging with it. I don't know, in general, kind of not fond of that aspect. By the way, didn't bother pointing this out, but you will notice that the logo looks like it's embossed, like it's physically sort of popping out of the body there. Which is cool, because sometimes they just paint it on. Sort of the same on the back. Now, quick run through of articulation before I forget. Head has a pretty decent upward motion, downward, in addition to the side to side. I think it's on a physical ball, but it's got like the sort of line there too, so actually it is most likely a ball socket. Ball jointed shoulder, sort of impeded motion in that it can't really go a ton back. I mean, I guess you could sort of turn it if you want, and then, it's kind of going back. Rotation at the bicep, double pins at the elbow here. Now, a lot of people have claimed, oh, we haven't seen this on the 3 3/4 inch, we haven't seen this on the 3 3/4 inch scale. That's actually not the case. First off, the showdown line kind of did that in a lot of figures. Also, I think the previous movie Spider-Man also had the double pin jointed elbows. I gotta go back and check though. That was a really ugly figure though. I think it was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. And then we have a ball socketed wrist, which, is something of a rarity in the 3 3/4 inch line. But there are some figures that have it, such as the Doctor Strange. There's a torso joint here, some decent side to side, not much forward back, but you do get a full range of rotation. Now the hips are kind of funky. It's got sort of like a half-lined ball socket here. Now they did it because they wanted to sculpt and paint in one side for part of the costume, which is cool. But it means that you can only really move it out from the one side. I'm kind of mixed on how I feel about that, because it's sort of tough to really work with it at times, but it does conceal the joint itself a lot better. Double pin here at the knee, and then we have the ankle rockers. Not a ton of motion forward, but you get a lot of back, which is cool. Then, of course, a really full range of rotation. Again, really wish that they had put in a calf cut here. Probably wouldn't have been very hard to do, just because you can't rotate the foot, so it sort of limits the posability options there. All around, pretty decent amount of articulation. Very solid sculpt. But let's quickly compare him to some of the other figures. First up, let's look at the Super-Poseable Spider-Man, which might be one of the other nicest figures for the 3 3/4 inch Spider-Man figures. He uses mostly ball sockets, like at the knees and elbows here. The one downside is he's kind of missing other points of articulation, like no bicep cut here. Although given that they do use the ball sockets for, say, like the elbows, you kind of get the same range of motion. So the figure has a lot of pretty decent movement, even if he's missing a lot of articulation as opposed to Ultra Spidey. However, just the general level of quality is just so much higher on the Ultra Spidey, which includes the sculpt, like, the webbing looks more or less painted on. I mean, if you feel it, you can tell it kind of is sculpted in, but I don't know. And then, of course, I absolutely hated how thin his head was from the side, which is something that's not an issue with this. This looks like a real head, whereas this is kind of bizarre. So, level of quality definitely a lot higher on the Ultra-Poseable Spider-Man. Let's quickly bring in the Toy Biz one again from the A Superhero or Marvel Legends Showdown line. These two actually have really similar levels of articulation, although it's sort of different in places. For instance, rather than get a ball-socketed wrist, we get point of rotation at the forearm, then a pin at the wrist. So it can kind of do the same thing. It's just that they chose a different way to do it, and you actually get more motion going this way and this way from the pin as opposed to the ball socket. Now, rather than get ankle pivot, he gets calf movement and then more forward motion, same amount of back. But, whereas the Ultra Spider-Man is kind of an attractive looking sculpt, this is pretty ugly. Oh, but one thing that I do kind of wish they'd done is he gets a peg hole. He doesn't, so he came with a flight stand. You could pose him jumping and stuff. Where this, you'd probably need to sort of custom make something. He also doesn't get any peg holes on his feet, which is just weird, given that that's been more or less a standard in every Hasbro Marvel line since forever. So, I mean, they do it in the Marvel Universe figures. They do it on the Fiercest Foes line. I'm not sure why they didn't bother doing it on this one. Finally, just for a sort of comparison in terms of posability, let's bring in Doctor Strange, who up until this point I think was actually still maybe the most posable of the 3 3/4 inch figures. You will notice that he also gets ball-socketed wrists. Ironically, in sort of, well, I mean, his arcane sort of hand poses and stuff look like he's spinning a web, so that would have been cool had they just gone that route for this figure, or again just given a fist or something. But you will notice that he gets a upper torso movement in addition to a waist rotation. By the way, the MLS also has waist movement, which is something I kind of would have liked to have seen on this, but I guess it might have broken up the sculpt a little bit. And then legs are on physical balls, but he has a cut right at the top of the thigh for rotation, cut here at the calf for rotation again, then ankle rockers. So incredible articulate figure. He also has a good upward motion on the head. So I mean, it's just an idea of what's available within the Marvel Universe line as far as articulation goes. So when they call him Ultra-Poseable Spider-Man again, he is very posable, but the Ultra only really pertains to his line, which is technically below posability levels, if that makes any sense. So that one has a lot of, hinged hips rather than ball joints or ball sockets or whatever, which is kind of weird, again. All around, I think that the Ultra-Poseable Spider-Man is a pretty neat figure. I have taken a whole bunch of photos of him. Actually did a written review. If you guys want to check that out, I'll include the link below. So you can get an idea of the various poses you can actually sort of toss this figure in. Back of the box, doesn't really give you a good idea of all the stuff you can do with him. The one major disappointment for me, at any rate, is just the lack of peg holes, because there's no way that this character can balance in sort of one-footed poses. If somebody could do it, I probably would be very impressed, but I'm just not seeing it, just because I kind of like posing figures doing stuff like running, and it's just not going to work. I mean, you'd have to probably tape a foot down or something, and who wants to use tape on their figures? But yeah, the Ultra-Poseable Spider-Man, definitely the figure to get from the new Amazing Spider-Man line. The rest of the stuff so far kind of looks shaky. But yeah, until next time, folks.